Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.
Welcome again to Street Talk. My name is Ahmad Shakaraki. And on Street Talk, we did the political, social, and economics here in Michigan, the U.S., and abroad. Now, joining me tonight,
Dennis Burnside.
Charles Thomas.
Welcome back.
Paget Maynard.
all right, man, we got a lot to cover tonight, but you were saying about the 2 or 3 things.
Well, the January 6th committee meeting just ended as I was pulling the parking lot. So
Okay.
I watched most of it at home, and I listened to the rest in my car. And they did an excellent job using video, testimony, and Twitter to show how this was an organized event that was triggered by one person, Donald J. Trump. He was the impetus, he was the creator, he was the architect for this entire thing. And they used the words and the deeds of people like Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, Mike Flynn, Attorney Clark,
Okay.
2 guys who won't be practicing law much in the future, to show how these guys, working with the Proud Boys, working with the Oath Keepers and some of these other violent militia groups, all planned on having a violent attack on January 6th. This was not a situation where they planned on these guys coming in to protest and it got out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
They knew they were coming in loaded with guns and ammunition. They showed communication with the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, how they were saying, bring your rifle, 150 rounds minimum, and a side piece with 50 rounds minimum. They talked about how Trump said, no, you can take me over there because those are my guys. So he had no fear at all that this was a violent action by a mob that got out of hand and could turn in any direction. He knew perfectly well what they were doing in advance and how he was not threatened at all by what they planned on doing.
Okay.
And then they even went into the Secret Service, which, man, this is scary, because they talked about how at a minimum of 10 days before January 6th, the Secret Service was getting volumes of tips and insider communication saying that these guys are coming, they're coming armed, they're coming planning on being violent, they're talking about killing people. You know, they say, you know, show up and be ready to kill. They're not saying show up and be ready to protest. And the Secret Service ostensibly didn't lift a finger.
Right.
There was nobody there to make sure that Congress could do its job by certifying the electoral vote and bringing about this peaceful transfer of power. They even showed scenes where Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer were calling the National Guard and calling the mayor of D.C., saying we need somebody here to secure this situation. We've got people in peril, and for some reason, they couldn't get any help. Well, now we know that this was a conspiracy, that at the apex was Trump, but you had a big pyramid at the bottom of people, including the Secret Service, who were involved in this thing.
Yeah.
And I tell you, man, the next step I think is to involve the DOJ. The DOJ has had a fire lit under its butt beginning last March when the hearings first started. I believe it was March. Is that about right, Patrick? Mm-hmm. And so they started pulling a little bit more of a priority of investigating this thing, and now it's been laid out so well that there's almost no way that they can't indict Trump. And then the last thing they did, now I'll pass it on to you guys, is they voted unanimously to subpoena Trump and have him come in and testify under oath. And of course, that's a big parlor game now, because only a fool who's guilty of a crime will go in and testify under oath and not plead the fifth. But Donald Trump is a fool. So he'll go in there, if he goes, and he'll start lying and being bombastic and start trying to instigate more violence. So it's going to be real interesting to see if this man actually shows up and testifies. But yeah, they rolled it out from, it's like a tube of toothpaste. They rolled it out from the guys at the bottom, super. And they ended all the way to the top with Trump today.
It was super.
Yeah.
And don't worry about him and pleading the fifth, because he has already said everything you need to know.
True.
I can't understand. This man got in there and literally told on himself every time he talked.
Yeah, he can't help
and just making it more and more plain.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I had a few boxes in Mar-a-Lago, and they were protected, guarded by Secret Service and my people. And they are mine.
And then, but half hour before that, he said they must have planted them. You didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
And then he comes back a few minutes later and says, they're mine.
They're mine.
I put them there. And it's interesting you segued there, Padgett, because yesterday, the news has come like a fire hose.
Man, it's going so fast.
Yesterday, we find out that the DOJ has been interviewing a man, I think his name is Walter Newell, N-U-A. I could be missing that last name, but anyway, he's been cooperating with the Department of Justice about those classified documents. This man says he was ordered to move those boxes personally.
Yes.
By Donald Trump to move those from the White House to Mar-a-Lago. And then once they were in Mar-a-Lago and they get the subpoena where the DOJ says, do you have any of these papers?
No.
No. Okay, well, we're going to come in and demand. Okay, we'll send them all back. So they sent some back.
Yeah.
Had a lawyer who's brand new, who's now in trouble, sign attestation saying we've sent everything back.
Yeah.
Well, now we know that after that attestation was sent back to the DOJ, Trump tells this guy, this Walter Newell, to move the boxes to a different location within Mar-a-Lago. And it's all on film, man.
Yeah.
This dude is like a Keystone Cop.
Yeah.
So he lies about it, having them. Then he lies about, okay, I have them, I'll send them all back. And then once he sends them all back, he figures the heat is on, and he has his boy move them around. And then he goes around the country, to your earlier point, Pat, just saying, they're mine. They all belong to me.
Yeah.
But I don't
And
have them.
But the good thing is, he is saying his people, were guarding them along with the Secret Service. But sometimes I think this, maybe you'd have to go back and say his first Secretary of State was correct when he said he was a moron.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, there was some information that you can't declassify it. It was top secret.
Yeah.
And did they take pictures of anything? They don't even know that, because Putin got really cocky.
Say that again, Chuck?
Putin got really cocky after Trump had pulled that off and had those papers in his possession for a while.
Yes, he did.
He got uppity.
Not
So-
only that, Chuck, but we also saw reporting earlier this year. I can't remember if it was the New York Times or Washington Post, but one of them posted an article that said upwards of 26 CIA and national security intelligence assets have either gone missing, gone quiet, or ended up dead.
Yeah.
Now, maybe it's a coincidence, but you got these.
That's
papers,
too much of a
this
coincidence, man.
Top secret human intelligence, signals intelligence. Signals intelligence means it was an email or a photo, a phone interception,
Yeah,
or
airdrop.
voicemail. Yeah, and they got that. But the human intelligence,
Yeah.
it's saying Ahmad is my spy over in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
They don't know that. Well,
Right.
they know
Now,
now.
yeah.
And these guys are starting to be hung.
Yeah.
And well, it doesn't take a genius to figure out there's a connection there.
Yeah.
So this whole thing has been a catastrophe.
Yeah.
And it's going to be. It's already been past interesting, but it's going to be real interesting to see how this thing
Yeah.
all closes
and
up.
another little ditty too that bothers me, they refused to call it a coup. And now if that had been Obama, that's been the top word, a coup,
Yeah.
or overthrow the government. But they just tiptoeing around that issue.
Well, they are calling it a seditious conspiracy.
Yeah.
And the definition of a sedition is a violent, not just an attempt to overthrow the government, but a violent overthrow of the
Violent.
government. And they are using those words now. They've used it with all of the Proud Boys. I mean, I think we had something like 7, 8
charged
Proud
with it,
Boys and
yeah.
7, 8 Oath Keepers who have already pled guilty.
Pled guilty to it.
Or been sentenced. We've seen all these other guys that I mentioned earlier. You know, your Bannons and your Easters and your Clarks all plead the fifth.
Yeah.
So they know they're in hot water.
Right.
It's just now that we finally got Merrick Garland to wake up from his nap, tie up his shoes, eat a bowl of cereal, and go to work. Now we're starting to see the DOJ move in this same methodical direction that they have been, but with a little bit more urgency. Because you got to remember, when this whole DOJ commission started, we didn't even know if the DOJ was investigating January 6th.
But
There
you
was
know,
no
Dennis,
word.
typically DOJ works undercover. They don't let you know what's happening. And when everybody was saying, well, they're not doing anything, they need to do something, he was doing. And this guy, his professor, was saying 2 nights ago, it's the same thing with him. He's very thorough. He is not going to come out and say something until he has the evidence. It's strictly evidence.
I would feel a little bit better about that if it wasn't true that after the very first hearing, when you had the young lady, I think her name was Taylor, who came out and testified.
Cassie?
All of a sudden, the DOJ wants to know who she is and how they can get in touch with her. How don't you know?
Right.
You're the DOJ. All these documents and witnesses who started coming forward January 6th, all of a sudden they started getting calls from the DOJ. So yeah, maybe they were investigating it, but it seems like the investigation hadn't got them pretty much further than the day of the event and who was there.
Right.
And now it seems like there's a little bit of urgency picking this
But
thing
they
up.
are definitely moving.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. But you're not going to know the fallout until, it's a lot. It's bigger than what we think it is.
Listen.
Well, I won't know how big it is until, somebody, and the somebody, it got to be Trump, is in jail,
In that orange suit.
Yeah, because, all of this stuff they've got against him, and ain't no use to somebody saying, well, wait, we got to wait and see how this is going to turn out and how this is going to turn out. They got evidence right now.
Well, come to think about it, Ahmad, you're on the right track. And I'm hearing some of the experts saying, if they just charge him on the one thing, January 6th, they have so much evidence on that, there's no way he could get out of it. So they seem to want to make sure they got all the bases covered, so that Donald is not going to take it lying down. You're going to try to go up, 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 to the Supreme Court with the hopes that his boys are going to let him off.
There's no way this is going to be limited to January 6th. No flipping way. You have this man who stole top secret espionage and left it laying around so foreign adversaries who
Anybody
were
take a
all
picture.
over Mar-a-Lago,
Yeah.
by the way. He had Russians, he had Chinese people there, our avowed enemies walking around there.
Right, that
There's
connected
no
him.
way that is not going to be investigated either. And don't forget, we got Sister Girl down in Georgia who's got him pinned up against the wall for obstruction of justice
Right.
and interfering with the election down there in Georgia. And of course, he's got the big civil trial in New York, which has him pinned to the wall. And we're looking at the brother Alvin Braggs, who said there's no probable cause. We're going to drop the criminal charges in this investigation, and the civil suit is showing all kind of criminality. I don't think we've heard the last word on that one either. So I'd be very surprised if this is limited to just January 6th. I think this dude is catching heat from all different directions right now.
Let me slip
Yeah,
back
they
a
better
minute
get
to
away
what
from it.
Chuck said about the what happened to these documents. The question came up. And if you listen to Trump good, clearly he said other people were around, the Secret Service, his people, and others.
Outsiders.
See? So you're telling me other people were there who could have seen what these documents were about.
And photographed them.
And not
Absolutely.
that too, that could have been done. And who knows if any of these were already sold to anybody.
Yeah, that's
Good
the-
question to ponder.
And why would Trump be so insistent that these are mine?
Right, right.
Mine. Why did he want them?
Yeah.
Well, you know what he wanted to
Yeah.
do. He wanted to use them for leverage to monetize.
Right, right. Conrad Trump wanted to do what he's doing in order to, keep that fear thing going.
And put some money in his pocket.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
And
I mean, he already saw what Kushner did.
yeah.
Kushner went over to Saudi
Saudi.
Arabia and started playing kissy face with MSB. Next thing you know, Saudi diplomats and Saudi luminaries are turning up dead left and right. In fact, one meeting he called them all into this ballroom at a hotel and let them all know, you going. And
Yeah.
they started murdering them right
Yeah.
there on the spot.
Right.
Based on information it's almost
Leaked.
certain that he got from Kushner.
Hey,
Of course,
don't
a few
forget
weeks
the
later,
millions that-
Kushner
that-
got a
the
$2 billion loan to save his butt on a property at 666 Park Avenue in New York because he'd overpaid for it and a balloon payment was coming.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
how do you get $2 billion so
Right,
fast?
right,
You
yeah.
sell out your country.
Right. Yeah.
And Trump's looking at this saying, well, hell, if he got $2 billion
that, I
just
want
for
that.
that,
Right, yeah. I
I
can
got all kinds of stuff they
Right,
want.
yeah.
I'm gonna be paid.
Right,
Let
yeah.
us say this man's motivation.
Right, right.
He's that thin.
Money, yeah.
man.
But there was another thing with this too. He was bargaining. Okay, I will give you these documents if you give me all the material you have on the Russia investigation.
Right.
So
Yeah, so-
he wants to make sure they are not available for anybody to see.
Yeah. But see, he'd be the first one to get rid of because he got loose lips.
Yeah.
It sinks ship,
yeah,
and he's
right.
gonna sink himself.
He again, and Dennis hit on it. I'm just waiting to see, and it'll be probably next year now before all of these, And the thing is, if he's running for president, will they stop? Will they stop these investigations and start back? What will
That-
They better
that's
stop the
why he's
nonsense.
stalling. So he get that protection. They can't touch him.
Well, the problem he's going to have is there's some advantages of running for president, right? Once you declare you're a presidential candidate, it kind of takes this, it kind of puts this aura of protection around you. Like, we've got to hold off because we don't want to politicize the election. But on the other hand, this boy's been paying his bills based on his campaign fund. All these phony
Yeah,
PACs.
that-
And he won't have that flexibility to use that money once he declares himself a candidate for office. So he's kind of hemmed in there. If I run for office, then I can't use this loot.
I can't use that
and,
pyramid.
And if I don't, and I let this loot keep coming in, then I don't have the protection of them saying, well, this guy's a presidential candidate, we better lay off. I think right now, come 2 days after the midterms, he'll be indicted by Department of Justice, by Merrick Garland. They've got enough on January 6th,
right.
and they're all and they're knee deep in his butt on this espionage case. So I think after the midterms, you know, he's got a little window now. He's got about a month.
Yeah, he's compromised.
Oh, in the compromise, he's guilty.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, the thing is okay, if he's indicted, then can he still run?
Well, we've had 3 presidents in the past be subpoenaed by Congress, right?
Okay.
It was Thomas Jefferson. He had some type of accusation of insider double dealing.
Okay.
And he didn't cooperate with he didn't answer the subpoena, but he did cooperate with the investigation, so he kind of got off the hook there. And then you have Bill Clinton,
Okay.
who voluntarily came in, so they didn't have to subpoena him, but they were going to, but he voluntarily came in.
Okay.
And that's when he told the famous lie about it depends on what is, that kind of thing. You remember that?
Yeah.
And then the third one that we had that was about to be a subpoena of a sitting president by Congress was Richard Nixon in '74. And again, he resigned
Yeah.
in disgrace. And of course, you had Spiro Agnew, his
Vice
VP,
President.
who was already gone because he had resigned because he got caught just trading favors in his office. His office is full of envelopes stuffed with cash, literally.
Yeah.
So there is precedent for these guys being subpoenaed, but if Trump gets indicted, he would be the very first president in the history of the United States to be criminally indicted. And whether or not he could run for president as an indicted criminal, I don't know that there's any law against it, but I don't see how that could be practically possible.
There seems to be something to that. I'm not sure exactly how it goes, but I've heard talk about whether or not you would be able to actually contest, not just presidency, but it seems as a Congress. So.
Well,
if people want to be so American, you know, to me it's a open and shut thing. Hell no.
well, the thing about it is that we got millions out here who claims they are Americans and waving flags and going on, and the whole thing is a lie. You know, I mean that's what's so.
Yeah.
That's what's so ridiculous about it, you know. We've been here talking about other countries, you know, and now look at the U.S. We got people out, millions out here, running on a big lie.
Well, if you want to be real about it,
You're being exposed.
the United States has always been hypocritical when it comes to democracy. All
And
through
truth.
World War I and World War II, Vietnam, most of Vietnam, we had a Jim Crow society where democracy is not given to all of its citizens.
Right.
We did not have a fully democratic country.
Right.
And now, if you look at elections since 2000, they've been dubious as hell, but it's always been to the Republicans' advantage, right? Because Al Gore won the popular vote in 2000. Al Gore, according to a New York Times investigation, had more votes in Florida than Bush. And Kathleen, I think her name was Schultz, I forget who was the Secretary of State, had been working with Jeb Bush to remove voters, black voters and Hispanic voters from the voting rolls. Several hundred thousands of them. And then Bush ostensibly wins Florida by, 700 votes?
Yeah.
And at the same time that's going on, the Supreme Court says to Florida, you know, Republicans are always states' rights, states' rights,
Yeah.
let the states handle it.
Yeah.
So Florida said, okay, we're going to count all of it, not just Broward, not just, what's the other southern Florida county, Broward and, anyway. We're gonna recount the entire state. Well, that's what the New York Times based their article on, and they said based on that recount, Gore was going to win Florida by several thousand votes. Well, the Supreme Court stepped in, stopped the vote, said that it would give irreparable harm to Bush if this count went on.
Which
and
is
we had to stop.
ridiculous.
And then you go around the world and you telling other people how their
Democracy.
governments and
Yeah.
elections ought to be run, and they look at you like you got your damn nerve.
Right.
Yeah.
Keep this in mind. Until 2000, the gold standard for verifying the veracity of an election was exit polling, right? Chuck, you step out the booth, who'd you vote for, player?
Yeah.
And if you want to say, you say, and who you vote for, Ma? Who you vote for, Paget? And after they get a representative sampling, they can say, yeah, this vote was accurate. Or we had a problem here. Because you got all these people coming out saying they vote for candidate A, but candidate B won.
winning.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what happened in Florida and in the United States in 2000. So you had some fishy things going on in Ohio in
Yeah.
2004.
Yeah.
With that election.
Yeah.
So here we are, less than 20 years later, and the Republicans lose a close election, legitimately lose it. It was close, but they lost. It was close, I should say, it was close when it comes to the Electoral College, which is a vestige of enslavement.
Yeah.
But that's another topic for
Yeah.
another day. In the popular vote, Biden beat Trump by 8 million votes. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't close that way, but in the electoral column, it was close.
Yeah.
Well, now they lose, can't be legitimate. They call into question everything.
Yeah.
So you got all these right wingers who've been cheating, blatantly cheating since
Right.
2000,
Yeah.
now crying about election
Right,
integrity.
right.
And damn it, you the ones been putting your fingers on the
Right.
scale.
And what's his postmaster general took all the equipment out of the system?
Yeah, they wanted to.
Yeah.
Actually, Trump also asked that they take all of these. They wanted the military to go in and confiscate everything and do this and do that because the machines were rigged and everything.
yeah.
You know, it's
He
just one
destroyed
mess.
all that, yeah.
But then you got to remember also that Trump basically admitted that Republicans cannot win an election unless they cheat.
Gee.
Well, look what's happening right now. You know, look at Georgia, Arizona.
Let's bring up those in the next section.
The guy went to high school is running for Secretary of State in Arizona, Mark Fincham. Mark Fincham couldn't spell secretary when we were in high school. Mediocre dude. Big old strong cat, couldn't play no ball.
Oh,
Coach Long used to kick him in the butt because, you know, Coach Long would be out there with no helmet on giving this dude the business who he's fully dressed for practice, right? He's a big wimp. But he's on TV now talking all tough about how the election was stolen. And I'm like, man, you can't spell stolen, dude. I went to school with you. Come on, man. So you got low quality candidates out there. You know, Herschel Walker out here. You know, they got an 800 number out here. Like, look, are you Herschel's child? Operator standing by. Call this number. We give you a DNA test. You know, 34 me. This dude obviously ain't qualified to be a senator. But you see this all over the country. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Boebert. I mean, just terrible.
We're going to get on them as soon as we start the other show. My name is Ahmad Sakaraki, and we'll catch it at the next block. Peace.
Peace.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.